Is Tuesday, January the 4th, 2022. It's at 6:02. I will call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority meeting for the month of January. Ask everyone to please stand for prayer and then Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Luke Ford, to the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this night to be here. I thank you for Jesus Christ, our Savior, and all that you've done for us, Lord. I thank you for the opportunity to work and for your blessing and giving us the ability to do so and a place to employ ourselves. And Lord, I pray that you will be with the board members tonight as they make decisions for the airport and all that is involved with that. Give them wisdom and determination to make the right decisions. I ask that you will be honored in all that we say and all that we do. And Lord, please return us to our families tonight and safely. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call. Ms. Hitt, please.
Chair Kirkland.
Present.
Vice Chair Fryer.
Here.
Chief Denny is absent this evening. Mr. Cornegay.
Here.
Mr. Richard is out. Mr. Harvin.
Here.
Mr. Dagenet is out. Ms. Rakowski.
Here.
Mr. Prang.
Here.
Ms. Whitney.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hitt. You have any public comment cards?
Yes, sir, none received.
All right, moving on to item 2 on our agenda is the consent agenda. And Mrs. Hitt had previously emailed to us the November 2021 financials as well as the December 7th minutes and December 28th workshop minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hear a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 3, reports. I will start off with our engineer, Mr. Prang.
Well, good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. I've got several things to report on. First, I want to talk to you about the Rehab Hangar Area Taxi Lanes project. This is a project that's in design. We have just completed the 60% design documents. In fact, just before Christmas, we delivered a set of plans and specifications. I think Scott has a copy and Maria has a copy. And anyone else who wants to look at a copy, I'm happy to send extra sets. I'm going to be scheduling a workshop type review meeting next week. Sometime midweek is what I'm targeting. So Scott and Maria, I'll shoot you an email to see if we can find a amenable date. My plan would be to come here and I can pull up my folks from our Tampa office design staff on the screen and we can kind of walk you through page by page. We do have an updated cost estimate. We discussed that with the FAA in December. The project is, right now it costs more than they budgeted, but they didn't make budget adjustments when we gave them new numbers last March or last October. So I've been imploring them on the side just because of that little oversight that maybe they could put this project on a list for additional funding. But the plan is to finish the design and go out to bid in probably around April 1st so that we can be ready in early May to submit a grant application. So the grant application will come back to the board probably at the May board meeting and we'll submit it the day following. Probably the biggest thing that's going to be of concern is which areas will be closed for construction and what those durations are. It's unavoidable in a project like this. There will be times when aircraft are either hemmed into the hangar or they have to be pulled out and relocated if that pilot wants to fly. So we're trying to keep the durations to somewhere in the 4 to 6 week maximum impact per area. But we have to kind of balance that with not having the work areas be so small that the contractor has extra production costs and the price goes up. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and I think that's probably the main thing we'll talk about next week is what the phasing looks like. I do know that on this side of Hangar A, where there's old concrete pavement, there's really only one small area of that one slab that's just completely shattered. So we are gonna remove and replace that one slab. The rest of that area will be joint seal replacement and spall repairs, similar to the work we did on the concrete apron a couple years ago, where we can kind of break it into small areas, and it's mostly working with hand tools to clean out the debris that's in the crack, and then putting in new silicone sealant. So at one time, I know a possibility there was a complete reconstruction of that area, but that's not gonna be necessary. Any questions on that project? Next on my list, Morgan, this is where I need your help on the screen, please. Morgan's gonna pop up a graphic that, something I drew on the board some long time ago. I lost this picture, but Maria had a copy of it, so just reminds you, this is a taxiway A is on the left, and then across the top, the four large square areas, that's Hangar F, the corporate hangars. Each of these is 60 by 60 internal, and then this is T Hangar E, 10 units. These numbers correspond to the hangar number. You have already replaced the slabs in the three highest severity cracking, so E1, E2, and F1. The slabs have already been removed and replaced. The next ones on the list in Hangar E that were rated in the moderate category were 3, 4, and 5. And then all of these other three in Hangar F are about the same severity. And before we go to the cost estimate for these, or the proposal, does anybody have any questions about where we are or what hangar work has been done or not done? We can come back to this if necessary. So the next one, please, Morgan. You have this in your packet as well. The contractor who did the previous work, Earthworks, located in Melrose, gave us pricing for both the large hangar, these corporate hangars, and the small hangars. The key to knowing which one you're looking at is in the box on the top right-hand corner of his estimate. You'll see that it either says corporate hangar. The price to remove and replace the slab in one corporate hangar is $99,042. And the price to remove one of the units in the T hangar building is $51,688. You have those in front of you, so I don't know if there's any reason to project them on the screen, but this is, the unit work is the same, and the conditions are the same as what was proposed previously. What's changed is the price of concrete has gone up, but as a way to mitigate the price of concrete and try to keep the pricing in the same frame that it was before, the contractor has found an alternative location to haul the easy base. There's a construction and debris landfill in the Gainesville area that will take it and use it for what they call daily cover. They have to cover what's placed in the landfill every day with some layer of soil. So they can use it there, and it won't, if it's unstable in the future in that setting, it won't upset the operation of the landfill like it does for us. So that's a shorter haul is the long and the short of that. So, David, I think you had the numbers on what money was available. I think this is good pricing. I think the contractor did good work before, when this was done before. He's going to use the same crew, so he's already learned a few lessons about, how to keep the debris from migrating outside the hangar or into the adjacent hangar. I do think there might be a conversation. I'm sorry, Morgan, can you go back to the picture? You guys might want to have a conversation about what's in the corporate hangars 2, 3, and 4. I walked them again with Maria and David. Were you there?
No.
I was there.
That was Scott. Sorry, I get you guys confused all the time.
They do favor.
Hangar 4, of course, is, I'll call it heavily occupied with the business. The slab is, like I said, it's got moderate cracking. It's serviceable. I don't know if they are amenable to being completely displaced for a period of time.
They will be permanently displaced. They are we rented that hangar out because we couldn't run it as aircraft storage because of the condition it was in. So that's one reason why we ended up signing a lease with Velocity.
I'm sorry, I was talking about Ken.
Ken.
I said 4, you're talking about 3, I believe.
3. Yeah,
So
you're
let's
right.
stay
I'm
with,
sorry.
let's talk about 3 where Velocity is.
Okay.
2 is
So they've got a 2-story structure that they use for classroom and for accommodations, I think, when they bring their military groups in. I did email them and let them know that at tonight's meeting that we would be deciding which hangars to do next, and that they would need to vacate everything in there. And then after the repair is done, it's gonna turn back to an aircraft storage, so it would need to terminate their lease, unless they want to find someplace else to build here at the
But they're
airport.
also on a short-term lease.
They're just on, it's month to month, but realistically knowing it's probably gonna take longer to dismantle everything that's in there.
And just to be clear, I apologize, I should have written on here some annotations, but I think we're talking about 2, aren't we?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. Disregard the numbers I gave you earlier. Velocity is in Hangar 2.
And then, Bulk is in 3, and then County Line is in 4.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know if County Line Aviation is a good candidate for slab removal and replacement. And when I look at the other numbers, I think if I was grading out how much money you have, I would put them way down the list anyway. Theirs
and
is less
Ken
severe.
said he was not interested in, he said it's fine the way that it is right now while I'm in here. He said, I just don't even wanna think about moving all of my stuff out of the hangar. So,
Some of the
if that
areas
helps
that are
us,
cracked, he has workbenches and other platforms on them anyway, so it's not, they're not in a walking area, there's no foot traffic anyway. And the part where he's moving aircraft in and out of the center of the hangar is still pretty serviceable.
Right now, we use 25,000 of that litigation money as our part for the CCUA feasibility study for water sewer. That leaves us a balance of 352,548 and change. That's, I think too, Maria, that includes all of the updates we had done to that spreadsheet to include the E1 repairs, E2 repairs, F1 repairs, and other costs that's documented there in that same spreadsheet. So I think that's a pretty good accurate number. So we're looking at 352, 548. So we're looking at 100 grand to do 2, basically.
Any of the, either 2 or 3, either of those or both of those are right in the 100 grand each. And the 2 hangars are in the $55,000 range each.
Of those, Bill, which ones would you say are the worst? Or are they all about the same? I know you've got them pretty much classified the same.
They're about the same, David.
Okay.
These that are in the moderate category have some slab differential where one slab is raised adjacent to another. I would say probably in terms of hangar usage, the thing that's most annoying in them is 2 and 3 both. When you're pushing an airplane in, you're going up a hump. The center of the hangar is kind of humped. And around the edges where the foundations are larger, where the columns bear, it seems like the larger foundations, the weight of the larger foundations has tended to hold the slab in place. So, but out in the middle of the slab where it doesn't have anything but its 4 or 5 inches of strength, that's where the slabs are kind of heaped in the center. And if you want to say we're going to do a number of this and a number of that, I can probably go back in and say for sure now that we know we're going to do 2 out of 3 per se. If you told me you wanted to do 2 out of 3, we could certainly go in with Scott, Maria, and say, well, definitely, these are the worst two. Here's the two we're gonna do. I didn't prepare it in that level of detail just because it's a little hard. You kind of want to really probably move the airplanes out to look at that in that much detail. Some of them have a lot of stuff in them, others just kind of have one airplane. So if the board wants to kind of play around with the amount of money you have and what you want to spend on this endeavor, you can give me a number per hangar and I'll help Maria and Scott figure out which ones to spend it on.
So I have a question. Bill, just out of curiosity, let's take F4, for example, the one you said that's not that bad, and he's not,
Here.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
he's not real concerned about it. If we do nothing, will it continue to get worse, or is it as bad as it's gonna get?
I think it's as bad as it's gonna get.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed since I looked at it the middle of last year to when I just looked at it a couple weeks ago. We know that water is the thing that causes easy base to swell. So it probably has already experienced the amount of water it's gonna experience under the slab. So I don't think it's gonna get worse. I will say this, so it's got a corollary to that is, if an aircraft maintenance business moves out of there and turn that over to aircraft, single or bulk storage, you may have to do something then, because then the floor is gonna be more exposed and you will be reintroducing tripping hazards and difficulties like that.
Have we discounted the value of that lease as a result of this damage?
I think there was we're not up to where we typically would be on a 60 by 60, perfectly good condition. So I think we've only done just CPI increases. Like Mr. Bailey, his was the worst. We didn't increase him for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we left it the same. I think, personally, I think by rehabbing one of the corporate hangars, F2, would make a little more sense simply because we could do a lot more with that larger space if we had to, then
It's a greater
doing-
return on investment.
I think so, rather than the T hangar. Now, obviously, we want to take care of the tenants too, if that's to a point that it needs to be, the work needs to be done. One question, Bill, in relation to this, in our discussion with the FAA last month, I believe it was, or November, and we were talking about the taxi lane project. Armando, and I know he's gone now, but he had suggested that area be added to that project.
Yes.
Was that scope revised y'all had provided all the information to him already, right? So we're still good with the FAA to take care of that taxi lane?
You're talking about replacing all of this pavement.
Correct,
Yeah, it's in the process of being revised. It's in our scope.
right.
We've already designed it. It's going to be in the bid package, and the FAA is in the process of updating all of their funding records to include that as part of the scope.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure that was still a go, only because of the balance that we do have left in the event that we had to do that out of pocket ourselves. It's not bad. It's getting bad on the south end. We're starting to see a lot of
Cannot
movement
make any
there.
promises about FAA funding.
Yeah,
Just be honest with you.
yep,
And if you want to defer this decision until July or August, you'll know by August how much FAA money you're going to get this year. We're going to submit a grant application for that project in the middle of May, and they, just if I work backwards, they push grants out by September because that's approaching the end of their fiscal year. You usually know sometime in August how much money you're getting. So we would know in August. So if you're nervous about that, again, it's the money's been requested. You definitely have an amount of money coming for the project, but it's probably, it's $500,000 short from doing all the work. So the DOT portion of that project is also short, And I know that's not why we're here, but I think there's an uncomfortable solution to that we're gonna talk about in February and March with the DOT.
Right.
You're probably gonna have to sacrifice, I think we can ask for some help, but Donna's probably gonna tell us there's no way they can climb that hurdle without you moving money from another project, out of another project. Am I right, Donna?
Correct.
Yeah, she had already kind of hinted that in a meeting last year, so I think
Right.
there's a pathway to solve that problem. Again, it's not great to take money from another project, but,
Yeah. We're going to rob Peter to pay Paul.
well, I mean, with prices, I gotta be honest with you, I know this sounds like a cop-out, but everybody's doing this now. If you're not an airport that's just floating in revenue, they're all doing this. Prices of everything are up, and, you know, you had a good forecast and plan 2 or 3 years ago, and you know, most small airports they're not nimble enough to adjust revenue stream to account for a 1 or 2 year blip in construction pricing.
And it's not just happening really with the small ones. I mean, even, you know, the JA and stuff with the bigger airports are having to adjust, you know, because they have to come up with a bigger portion of the projects. So they're having to adjust you know, either slide them or
Defer projects and move money into projects that are current projects.
So from where you stand, Bill, do you anticipate that we're near the peak of this pricing surge? And that it would behoove us to wait? I mean,
If you know that, I want you to handle my retirement account.
I started saying, I want to see that crystal ball too.
Crystal ball now.
I never said it was a fair question. It's just a question.
No, I don't think we're near the peak. And because this is my personal opinion, I'm not a contractor, so I don't buy and sell asphalt, steel, lime rock, and all those commodities every day. But I do feel like the things that have made those prices unstable and have upward pressure is uncertainty. Uncertainty in the economy, uncertainty in our governmental structure and the way our government may flip on a dime to some other policy or procedure. I think other foreign entities are taking advantage of that. So I don't see any of that changing until this time next year, honestly. And I can't tell you if a midterm election is going to make that settle down so that we could say, okay, well, for the next 2 years, it looks pretty static. So I think we're going to continue to see a little bit more upward pressure, or we're going to stay at this peak through the middle of the year. I can tell you for contractors too, this is another thing that's happening. Supply is still a problem, supply of labor, supply of heavy equipment. We're just now starting some projects from last year that should have started in October. We're just getting them started now in January, February. One of them's not even started yet because the contractor doesn't have personnel. I mean, he won the contract and he's got the material purchased and most of the material has been delivered, but he doesn't have enough crews, can't hire enough people to come do the project. And, you know, in good faith, we could have defaulted him for that. But I think another contractor would have told us the same thing. I'll do it for twice as much money and I can't do it for 6 months. So that airport chose to stay on the horse they were on and just say, well, please don't start and come tear up our runway and then go away for 6 weeks and leave us with nothing. So they've just decided, wait until you can come do the full project from start to finish. So I say all that to say, Scott, that backlog is going to roll towards the end of this year. I think we're probably going to see a delayed start on projects for the next 6 to 9 months. And pricing will stay high because of that.
So Bill, the apron area, taxi lane that we did on the west side of E, correct? That was 255,000, 300,000?
Around 250?
Yeah, okay,
I'll remind you though that we narrowed that.
correct.
And we don't have the advantage to narrow this because we need pavement to both sides.
Well, and I appreciate that because that even brings up or drives home the concern a little more. If we had to do that taxi lane ourselves,
Yeah.
we're basically going to gobble up all of the monies that we've got left just to do that taxi lane.
Yeah.
So I want the board.
It's about $400,000.
Okay, so it's even more than what we have.
Yeah.
I want the board to realize that if all of a sudden now the FAA comes back and says, okay, we're not gonna fund that, then eventually we're gonna have to replace that because we know easy base is underneath it. We know on one end it's already starting to shift and move around, typical of easy base. So just something else, guys, for us to be aware of, as we talk about this.
I will point out something, though. I'm not trying to push the decision-making here, but if somebody were to come in and say, what's the condition of these two hangars? You've already taken care of the three that I think had real tripping hazards, and they were kind of borderline unusable with the way you had to really muscle an airplane in up the hill and then control it when you're backing it out so that it doesn't get away from you. I don't know if you have any direct feedback from these tenants that there's, are they in here complaining on a regular basis, or they're serviceable is the word I would put. They're not pretty by any means, but they're serviceable. So if you decided to defer this to July or August, I don't know if these prices will hold. We'll probably have to ask for another tweak on these prices, but it'll still be in this ballpark in that time frame, I think. And you're not in taking on great risk to wait another 6 or 7 months.
Well, we get the inflation going though too, and I don't know if anybody, like you say, can predict what that's gonna continue to do. One thing I would suggest is on corporate hangars 2 and 3. If we did that, I think there's a multifaceted benefit. If we can stabilize that building, in other words, the red iron and all of that, so that there's no more movement or mitigate any movement in it. And the other thing is, as opposed to 3, 4, and 5 on E, each one of those hangars has the possibility of affecting one aircraft each. 2 and 3 can have either multiple aircraft in them, or they can have one heavy aircraft.
Right.
I would recommend we go ahead now and do 2 and 3 and wait on 3, 4, and 5. Because if that building starts to lose its, and I know it's been there so many years now, but if the red iron starts moving, like we saw some of the upheaving right under the wall,
The wall panels are definitely buckling.
we won't need a taxi lane back there once that building starts to reach the point of being,
And by doing that, we can, when we get ready to do E3, 4, and 5, then we have a place to put them temporarily
right.
during that rehab.
What did we
many-
just pay out of curiosity on F1? Do you remember what the figures were? How much that changed?
I got it.
It was 95, I think, 96 maybe.
It's only gone up four or 5,000, but
Well, the cost of concrete went up more than that, but remember, he
mitigated
found the
it.
others, the short haul on the easy base. I asked him to try to find a way to mitigate the pricing, to try to keep it in the
that's
same
right.
frame.
Scott, there's E1, 2, and
okay.
the numbers that we paid out.
Yeah, so 95.9 was on F1, so right at 96,000, so.
Did we say that if the board, because I knew there was some early discussion about hauling that material, and we kind of talked about it, I think when we met with her a few weeks ago, about keeping it on site. Was that something that the board, I know then, we were gonna find some acreage in the back 40?
Somewhere, that was one possibility, but
'Cause I don't know how much it would even drop it.
I think we agreed that that was probably not the best idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
we don't know how it could come haunt us in the future.
Yeah.
The other thing is we've been talking amongst ourselves and then discussing with a couple of tenants. But if we get, velocity's got to come out of there, we know that. And how many people has Morgan got down, the waiting list down to what?
I think we're down to
35 or something,
close to 40.
40? We've got aircraft that'll come in and get in these hangars. If we can get, like I say, if we can get 2 done, we've got one tenant Maria needs to talk to, has asked about that. That'll open up their 2 hangars. And 3, we may have the opportunity to, well, it may be a wash there. It's bulk already, but
I was gonna ask, how many are in bulk now?
4 right now.
there's 4, but there's 2 in there that may be going, or we need to come to a decision on. But there's a possibility by doing those two and getting them in better shape. The other thing that I worry about in the bulk is when you've got multiple airplanes in there, if you don't chalk one of those and you get rolling movement,
Oh, yeah.
if that happens in one of the T hangars, it could coast into a wall. If it happens into bulk 3, you could roll into other aircraft.
Yeah.
I personally think we should take action now, but that's,
Okay.
the pleasure of the board.
I agree.
And then
Well-
leave some of that money in the funds,
Yeah, that would leave us a little balance in there, and I think it provides us a means for accommodating future rehab or future tenants. So, all right. So, do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept proposal 2201-04 from Earthworks and use that application on corporate hangar F2 and F3. Accept his bid amount of $99,042.20 on each hangar.
All right,
I'll second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Had discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, I will, Maria, I'm gonna try to hook up you and the contractor. I don't have any, service left in my other contract, and I know you guys don't wanna amend that, so I'll just commit to checking on it every time I'm here for another reason.
Okay,
How about that?
yep.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So today, next topic, water and sewer feasibility update. We had a kickoff meeting today. Maria, Miss Lynn, and David participated. This again is the feasibility study to determine water flow demand, fire flow demand, and sanitary sewer generation for what's conceived of in the master plan, including the new West Side Industrial Park and MHD Rockland development. So a couple of things that have happened recently on that. I'm gonna kind of blur over into two things here for just a minute. We did submit to the FAA in December. We submitted on your behalf an update to your airport layout plan drawing. One part of that was just to clean up. You're required periodically to submit that and show any new construction and new configuration. So we showed the new taxiway A configuration and the hold pads. We showed the Potapow hangar. We showed this new hangar. We showed the new FBO building, the parking lot. So that was just a little bit of cleanup work. But previously, the West Side Industrial Park, the new access road, the MHD Rockland site, that was just shown generically as a future aviation development. So now that it's officially part of the environmental assessment, in 2018, the FAA had told us to hold and don't submit the ALP. Here in December, they told us submit it. So the FAA's, I think, working through some internal policy on how they handle ALP changes and how planning work meshes with environmental work. So anyway, the purpose of the water and sewer feasibility study is to develop real numbers so that Clay County Utility Authority can understand how and if their system that is located in the city close to what you call that road, Speedville Road?
Yeah, Southeast 8.
Yeah, from that location onto the airport and then into the airport. So not only will we be generating future demands for water and sewer, but we'll be laying out probably a multi-phased project to show how water lines and sewer lines could be built in phases. First to serve existing facilities and near-term growth, meaning the West Side industrial area, and then showing how we could expand the system in the future, water and sewer, to pick up other development over the next 20 years. So that's about a 6-month process. We started today developing a list of stakeholders. This board is one of them, so you'll hear back from us with a technical memo first, which will have a lot of numbers in it. And either myself or my utility engineer will come make a presentation on that. And we're prepared to make that same representation to any of the other stakeholders that want to hear it, city council, the two counties, and CCUA. So that was kicked off today. Anybody have any questions on that? If you want to look back in your records, that's the supplemental agreement number 25 scope. Something else we've started on, but only gently. You had given us a design contract for replacing the runway lighting and signage system on runway 1129. The survey work for that is going to be scheduled in about 2 weeks. So we can't go too far without survey, but we're probably 30% in with our preliminary lighting layout and looking at the sign locations to see if the existing locations are appropriate. So we've got a slow start on that. I had somebody over the holiday period that needed some work while everybody else took time off. Poor guy didn't have any vacation time, so I told him to plan better next year. So anyway, he started working on that, and when we get to 60% on that, probably in February, we'll submit a set of plans for that as well. We should be able to, that's DOT funded, we should be able to bid that out in a similar time frame as maybe right behind the taxi lane and taxiway project. David, can I go off agenda for something that the EA?
Yes.
Last night at City Council, David gave a briefing to the City Council on the environmental assessment. I know when I've given briefings on this in the past, we've been at a log jam with the FAA for quite a while. We had advanced some of the documentation, but the FAA had told us not to submit anything. So in October, late October, and then again early December, we had a number of phone calls and Teams meetings with them to get it off a dead center. And so we are preparing now to submit a pretty big slug of documents to them in January. The first one is probably the most important one because it gets a lot of attention. It's the purpose and need document. One of the whole premise behind an environmental assessment is you have to establish what the purpose of the facility or the development is and what's the need, what need exists and how does it meet the need. Part of that is also something called an alternatives working paper, where you look at other parts of the airport. This didn't take very long because there's really no place else on the airport where you could build that type of facility close to the state road and taxiway access, but you have to go through those motions. We've also completed the biological assessment and the cultural resource assessment. One of those has to do with wetlands and endangered threatened species, and the other one is mainly historical artifacts and things like that. The site work for both of those has been complete. The other big thing that we've started on but not finished was back before Christmas, Maria helped us with some information. I think Scott also participated in flight patterns and whatnot. We've started the noise modeling and the air quality monitoring. There's a whole, not monitoring, modeling. There's a whole modeling process that the FAA requires you to use that models existing conditions to post to make sure that there's not significant impacts to either any of those noise or air quality resources. So long and the short of it is there's about a 3/4 page update which Maria can send out, but I wanted to go over those things briefly just to give you guys a chance to ask a question if you had one. And then if you could email this to him tomorrow. Rita, did you have something else that you wanted to advance?
Yes.
I'm back on a cycle where I have to be in LaBelle, Florida, every other Wednesday morning. I know this happened sometimes last year, so that means one way for me to do that is to do most of my driving tonight. So I've asked permission to leave early, but if you guys have any questions that you want to advance before I do that.
Yeah, if you don't mind just giving just a little bit of an update. We did receive information, was it back in early December? Or no, it was early November.
I forgot the topic already.
Oh. The bipartisan infrastructure law.
Oh, thank you, that.
Yeah.
I was already trying to formulate my response. You told me earlier, but
So there was an email that came through that said that there is this new bipartisan infrastructure law that our federal government's putting money back into transportation all the way around, but specifically for airports, it was $15 billion, I believe. And so they break it down into, your category of airport, much like we received on some of our other COVID funding. This, though, is different. There's $159,000 for each general aviation airport in Florida will receive. And so we listened in on this webinar, and it still was out there that the FAA still hasn't really formulated the perfect package to be able to write the grant to get it to us. We know we can use it for projects, but that's about all. So I don't know if you want to.
well, I think the things we have learned, which they're still writing the regulation, but some things appear to be pointing in the direction that it will be different than the CARES grant, the Carissa grant, and there was another one in there somewhere, the name of which I forget. When you got those grants, you got a 32,000, and then I think you got a 13,000. Those were intended to support your daily operations. So, and it was pretty easy to get reimbursed for those by using either employment records, and so you're paying payroll. I know a few airports, bought a load of fuel. It's operating expense. They paid some utility bills. This, I think, is going to be focused definitely away from that, more towards do a project, either a standalone project or put the money with a project that can be done in the near term. I think the grant will still have a 4-year duration, but the unwritten statement is, please don't save this money for 4 years. Put it into play with a project. The hanging question is, what projects will qualify, and will it be just regular FAA eligibility, which would mean there's some things you couldn't do with it. One example is you couldn't be doing this hangar work with that money, because that hangar's for a single tenant, it's not a public use. So I don't know if they're gonna have some leeway in the way that maybe you could submit projects for approval if they're outside of traditional eligibility, or if it's just gonna stay within the regular narrow eligibility. So,
Is there any timeline on,
5
I
years.
mean, again, that goes with his
Maybe when
question,
the
I
grants
guess,
are
if you
gonna
can
come out.
predict
yeah.
when they come up with the wording as to what we can,
I think we'll have it probably by April.
okay.
And I say that because I know that in May, when we all start submitting grant applications to them, and now all that staff is trying to churn through the regular grant program, I think they want to have all these grants out and in the hands of the airport before that starts.
And this is 15 billion over a 5-year
Yes.
timeframe.
Yes.
With us, well, Keystone and other similar size airports will get the 159,000, for
Is
each
that
year.
stretched out? Oh,
That's each year, wasn't that the way you understood that, Bill?
So it's the way I understood it, but I haven't heard anyone really articulate that clearly. At least that's the way it was programmed. I don't know that it's been appropriated that way.
Yeah.
And I've after doing this for a number of years, I learned that's two different things. We want to do that, and then we actually appropriated the money to do that is not always the same.
Is this reimbursable or is this upfront? And accountability?
I believe it's going to be upfront, like the others were.
Like the ARP?
Yes. In fact, I think this, don't quote me on this, because this is part they haven't written yet. The other grants, they came to you. Somebody in Atlanta, FAA, was given the task of writing all the grants. You didn't have to apply for it. You got it, you executed it, and then you submitted reimbursement to justify the expenditures. I think this will be the same way, but I think it'll have a little different criteria for what you can spend it on. And you'll remember too, when CARES first came out, they stood up this huge question answer FAQ. I think they'll probably have to do the same thing for that.
Okay.
So.
And during that meeting that we were all, or that webinar that the FAA put out, there were people submitting questions, through that whole process. And quite frankly, the lady that responded to most of them was upfront, that those regulations, those details have not been hammered out.
Right.
But it certainly, I'm sure, gave them feedback as to some of the things to be aware of, because a lot of people were saying, well, look, we've got already a multi-million-dollar project in the mix. Can we now add, these funds to that? So there's all of those.
So there's been a little hint that
scenarios.
that might not be preferable or allowed. I know some commercial service airports, their piece of the pie is much bigger, of course. They're getting numbers in the millions and tens of millions. And the early hint about that was, you can't just put it with a project that's already going, that has a deficit. Do something.
Yeah.
Establish a new something, start a new project, pick up a project. This was a complaint that was voiced early, was you're asking me to start something new, but I don't need the something's new for 5 or 6 more years. This is the thing I need now. Give me the flexibility to use the money on the project I have at hand, my 1 or 2 year priorities. So some of the bigger airports have been pretty vocal. They laid back on the giving out of CARES money, but I think the airports are a little more emboldened by speaking out about, give the airport the flexibility to determine the best use for it. But
With that said too, because it seems like the majority of our projects get funded by DOT. So if the FAA only does like the runway out there, and they don't buy fuel trucks or they don't buy tractors, is it only gonna be whatever the FAA normally funds us with?
yeah,
Because we were talking about like
seems like
LED
it's heading
lighting
that
for
way.
the hangars.
yeah.
We were thinking it'd be nice to get all of them converted out to LED. Was just something we had heard about from that lady Lori that came in and did the audit. I don't know if you were aware of that, but there was a lady came in and audited the new equipment, and she said she had some projects going for LED lighting. And then Maria says, well, we probably couldn't use that because that's typically DOT. So they're gonna give you money you can't use.
Well,
Creative thinking.
there is at the bottom of all of the FAA eligibility criteria, there is a line that says, other projects will be considered if all of your priorities are met. Like if you don't have any safety items or any security items that are noted in your inspection or things like that, they will listen to other projects, but I gotta be honest, with the amount of money that's usually available, we never get down to that criteria,
Okay.
so.
Kind of going off what Scott said, FAA, I know you can't speak on projects as far as specifics for this funding, but they wouldn't do stuff like the road improvements out here, would they? That would be DOT stuff.
Yeah,
Not
that-
strictly here.
It would be airfield. Well, I don't know. You mean like overlaying the public entrance road?
Overlaying it, expanding it, maybe even more lighting that we had talked about.
That might be eligible because it's public use.
That's what called, I hear when you say
So
public
a
use.
project like that's gonna rank very low, but if they want you to do initiate a new project, they might be willing to accept low ranked projects. I mean, it would be a project that would never rank for regular FAA money. But, so I will say this, we just went through, back in early December, we went through projects with FAA and kind of looked at the next 5 years. We're gonna do that very shortly with the DOT. You already do a good job of keeping up with what are our projects in the stream, what's coming, what are our needs. That's a game board that's always changing because your needs are always pushing priorities forward and backward. So it's always a good time to be ready with, hey, here's my list of my wish list and things that need to come into the program. And maybe through that process, we'll find something that fits $159,000 and the eligibility. So.
Okay.
We can look at the long list of eligible projects list that we have, because it usually, and like he says, it depends on how they rank them, and what they're gonna require on this funding, but we have a whole long list that says whether FAA approves it, if it's eligible for FAA funding or if it's eligible for DOT funding. But some of that's very vague, though.
Yep.
That I found on that listing, and this came from our Tallahassee office. So, I don't know.
More to come on that.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, you guys have, you have 8 minutes to finish inside of an hour.
Took up too much.
Thank you, Mr. Praying. We appreciate the updates and the information. Have a safe trip
Thank you.
also. Okay, moving on the agenda, Ms. Whitney. FDOT update.
As Bill said, we're gonna be gearing up for our, starting our new, seems like we just finished our last cycle, but we'll start our new cycle through fiscal year '28. And, so we'll be, scheduling meetings with all the airports. So we usually do that in February or March. We try to get it done in February, but we'll be scheduling those in the next few weeks. And, that'll be just to discuss, all your upcoming projects and any changes that y'all need to make, or if you need to switch any projects around or anything. And that's really all we have going right now. It's been quiet through the holidays, which is nice.
No doubt.
Give it another week, it's gonna pick
I
up.
know, it's fixing to. February's gonna hit hard.
Guess the legislature will be back in.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Whitney. The items under my list there, Reddish and White, they are the certified public accountants auditing group that we have used in the past to do our annual audits. It's that time of year again. We do have a letter from Reddish and White wanting to confirm their understanding of the services they're going to provide. They list audit objectives and then general information, internal controls that they look at every year. And so basically, I think what we need is just approval from the board to move forward with that, with Reddish and White.
And I don't know if you want to speak of the amount that they'll charge this year, thankfully. We're not going to have a single audit included, which will save us probably about another $5,000. The last 2 years, we've had to have an additional single audit because of all the grant projects going on. So this year, or for 2021 audit, will not be included.
I didn't see an amount on here,
Okay.
but I thought we had budgeted somewhere around 7,500.
We have budgeted for it. Okay.
There's no substantive change in any of the language from last year.
I think it's just blanket, other than not speaking about the single audit.
Yeah, it'll be a standard audit, so we don't have to do that extra single audit because of a project exceeding a project dollar limit.
And I did speak with Kara right before Christmas, and she can get in here sometime this month, and of course, it won't take as long as it did the last year. So we won't have a problem in getting everything done probably by, are you guys done yet?
No, not yet.
Okay,
Well, we're
Probably
anticipating
by-
being done by the end of January, beginning of February.
okay.
But you have until April to get
I
that
was gonna say, I
started,
think
so.
she's usually in and out of here now by end of February.
You need a motion?
We do need a
Is
motion.
this, first off, may I ask, is this an extension of the current contract, or is this a
No, it's
motion
something,
for a new contract?
it's something we do every year.
Okay.
It's an annual.
Move to proceed with the audit proposal from Reddish and White.
Then I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item I have is COLA, a cost of living adjustment. In our budget process this past year, we had included a 3%, not knowing what we know now, and what we're all hearing on the news. Maria had provided here a news release, I'll pass this around, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And from what I'm seeing here for the 12 months, the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, the CPI-U, which is typically used, increased 0.8% in November on a seasonally adjusted basis after rising 0.9% in October. So the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today over the last 12 months, all items indexed increased 6.8% before seasonal adjustments. So one of the things, here's where this will affect, well, I'll tell you what it will affect. First of all, it's going to affect our COLA increases for our employees, our staff. The second thing it affects is the rates for T-hangers, bulk hangers, some of those other numbers. We had also, this past year, included a 3%. All of our leases, with the exception of with the firm and I think Alachua County School Board, those leases are limited to a 3% increase max. We have not implemented an increase in the last 2 years because of COVID. So that's another area that we need to address with respect to the CPI, knowing what it is and then knowing too what our limitations are with respect to that. Maria has pulled together some numbers, typical numbers. For a typical T-hanger, Maria, the 3% is really not a lot. I mean, you're
It's right around
$6
$6 and change on a basic hanger.
Yeah.
And we did go ahead and spread it across, from everywhere from obviously our T-hangers, our corporate hangers, and then obviously all of our leases, whether that be any buildings MHD Rockland does, our tie downs, land leases. The only one who's not going to be impacted by the 3% is the firm. That was because that was an agreed upon increase, I believe at 1.8% every year that's affected or impacted by June. But everybody else across the board will be a 3% increase, and we'll make that effective February 1. I think we said that the CPI will not be confirmed even until January 10th, I think. 12th, okay.
Yeah.
But we can't, just based on the lease language, we can't go any higher than 3% anyway, so.
Right. So I think what we need is a motion to address our rates with respect to T-hangers and ground leases, those types of things, to, if it's the board's preference, to raise it to the 3%.
I'll make a motion that we increase the rates for all our applicable leases in the amount of 3% per the CPI.
Second.
All right. Any discussion, any questions about?
Is the COLA automatic, or do we need to vote
No,
on
the
that?
COLA's going to be separate.
Okay.
So I wanted us to address this, so that way we can go ahead, Maria then can go ahead and have staff implement those increases in the next invoices that go out. The invoices for January have already gone out, so we'll just pick it up for February. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. On the cost of living adjustment, there is no limit there. We've just heard what the number is being projected. We won't know the official number until later this month. And for some reason, Maria, I thought it was February. So I heard a February date this thing had been bumped back to. Regardless,
January 12th, how we're talking about.
here's what I'm proposing. Why don't we have Maria go back, get with Lori, look at staff payroll, and come back to us with percentages, different percentages of increases for a COLA?
As it relates to a dollar amount?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that agreeable to everyone?
I like that.
Ms. Lynn, what will the city do with their staff and the CPI?
So the contracted employees, such as myself, has a CPIU increase or COLA increase every year that's limited to 3%. Council also is on ordinances to where their increase is limited to up to 3%. So at 6.8%, that's going to be capped out at 3%. as far as staff goes, that is,
You manage that.
yeah, and I believe that was taken care of in your bylaws as well, as to where that's impacted by the budget, and in the city's aspect, it's managed by the manager. And so I go through, implement those amounts, and it's adopted October 1 and put in. So that's a budgetary expense that's handled as we adopt our budget.
What are you looking at recommending, or have you made that for yet?
We've already made ours because our pace, we start October 1 through September 30th, and then ours was at right about a 2.5%, I think is what the increase was across the board.
Way below it.
Way below it.
Don't you wanna use-
Ours is kind of capped at a 3%.
6.9 is what it is now. It's gonna continue to go up. That's why they're not releasing it until February, because they already know it's gonna go up again.
Yep.
What we did with our budget is we included 3%. So our budget has that number in it. So if that's the number that we want to stay with, then the way our bylaws that we had just revised, then airport manager then is responsible then for.
Implement those and then bring to the board a budget amendment if
Right.
it's necessary. But we have a lot of things that are going on, as well as implementing minimum wage increase and things of that nature. That's all happening over the next several years, and part of why COLA is going up as well.
We have that with Morgan,
Yes.
that incremental increase that we're working through with her as well, so. All right,
So we need no action on the board, Maria?
Probably
Handle
just
that administratively?
Just a consensus. I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be handled through your budget. If amendments needed, then she can bring that to the board.
okay.
I agree.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lynn, for reminding me of that. All right, the last item on my list is the MOS update. We met again, and we tweaked the MOS some more. Since that meeting, Mrs. Hitt had received some feedback from, I don't know if it was an individual or a couple of individuals, and it was good questions as to some of the verbiage that's in the document, as well as some of the mandatory clauses that were listed there that would be included with all of the new leases that we'd had Jim Taylor look over. So what I'm going to propose is that we schedule another workshop so that we can go through those questions and comments, and we may receive some more prior to our meeting. So if you have your calendars, fellas, what is a good,
I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to land this plane, so.
well, we are,
I thought y'all wrapped it up the last meeting. I missed.
the two Scotts and I have been the main ones flying this airplane. You're right. We're ready to land this thing.
I'm flexible.
I am too. As soon as next week is good for me.
Well, it ought to be up to me, you, and Kirkland. We have other people setting the date, and then they don't show.
Let's see.
I'm not available on Wednesday, the 12th. That's the only conflict that I have early that morning. Now, late afternoon, I would be open any day next week.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Tuesday's the only bad day for me.
well, you two pick a day. You want to do Wednesday afternoon, or you want to do
Yeah,
Thursday?
Wednesday afternoon's fine with me, the 12th.
Yep.
All right. Let's do,
I think we did 4 o'clock the last time. Did that work out?
Yep, that's fine.
works for me. Unless y'all want to do it earlier, or is 4 better for you?
No, earlier's better,
You
actually.
want to do 3?
earlier.
Let's do 3.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we had done 3 before also and went a couple hours. That's pretty much the extent of that. So, all right, so Ms. Hitt, you'll send an invite out
Yes.
to remind us of that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, that's all I have. Moving on to the next item, Mr. Cornegay.
All right, I wanted to update you on what is probably the longest standing request that this airport has ever had. But we're making headway.
I think the litigation has you, yeah.
You're right, I forgot about that. Yeah, this is a close second. In any event, Bill Prang had helped me with the specifications and everything for the generator request, the 2 generators that we're requesting. So I forwarded the updated executive summary and a new letter of request to Congresswoman Kamick, and I got a response back within 2 days from her Chief of Staff, Jessica Norfleet, saying that this is wonderful, this is what we've needed all along. And then 2 days after that, I got an email from one of the grant writers on her staff asking for additional information that we provided. And so now I believe it is in the pipeline that it needs to be in. So hopefully we'll get some resolution on this quickly. I just wanted you to have copies of the executive summary and the letter of request that we sent. So you'll be up to speed.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. I do have a question. This is just for the FBO only?
So
No, on the letterhead, he's got
in the letter itself, it references to,
third paragraph, the end of it.
yes.
In addition.
Yep. In addition to a backup generator for the FBO, we are also requesting funding to install a 3-phase backup generator for the fuel facilities.
Okay, because I didn't see it listed in the specification, so that's why I was curious. Good, wow, that'd be great.
What did you say earlier in the meeting that we had this morning? We're doing it in 2022?
We're gonna get it done.
We're gonna get it done.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting it done.
We're getting it done in 2022, everything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. This is, you're right, Mr. Cornegay, that's been long overdue, and we've jumped through a lot of hoops and hurdles and thought we were making progress and obviously hadn't. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's good news. Look forward to hearing what you hear from Congressman Kamick's office. All right, Mr. Fryer.
Okay, got quite a bit to cover, but I'll try to keep it quick. We accepted delivery of the new Kubota M5660 mid-size tractor that came in. What was that? Was that last Thursday? We also have a dump trailer now, a hydraulic dump trailer. We've got it stored over there with the Cessna 140. Just because we don't have enough room in the shop, but that came in as well, or I went and picked it up. Still outstanding, we have a side-by-side Kubota diesel. It's like an all-terrain vehicle or whatever that will haul the weed killer, and then the 20-foot Land Pride, and then we have a 16-foot landscape trailer with a tank coming. That's still on back order from Texas Trailers. Those are all covered under the grant money we received. And thank you so much, Ms. Whitney, for all your help on that.
Definitely.
That equipment is really gonna help us a lot.
Be updated on your equipment.
Yep, so, okay, the septic tank project over here at MHD Rockland has been completed. There was a new lift station as well as a new septic tank and drain field put in. That also included well abandonment that we had to do through Clay County, and then a quite expensive 10-gauge wire over to feed a little duplex receptacle, but we got that done. That will negate is it $600 a month we've been paying Bradford Septic, or roughly? So that money will stop.
Right.
That project is complete and functioning so far as I know. I haven't heard any complaints over there, so. Scrap metal project, it has cleaned up. Morgan, do you have that picture? Thank you. That's what the field now looks like. It looks like a field again. So all that metal's.
That's called literally the field of dreams.
Well, it was called something else, but
It was. We'll keep that between us.
the only thing we've got is a burned pile of wood. I hope we can burn. Maria's been working with Bradford Fire Rescue on that, and we're trying to coordinate something there.
Well, that's amazing, because I was there during Christmas holidays, and the guys were still working down there, maybe between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it was a mess.
Yeah, they just finished up on December 19th, I think was the last load going out of here. So
That's long coming too.
They were a little bit ragtag looking, but boy, they got it
They
done.
will never
They
see.
got it done. So, and we're hoping to get some revenue soon. I've got a call, I'll call Chris next week. We had the holidays and it's really only been 2 weeks since they left, so they're still rounding up scale tickets. Okay, so that does that. Happy and pleased to state, and Mr. Richard's not here tonight. Witten Roofing was awarded the bid for the Wayne's Retreat. We went out and got 3 bids. Witten came in at, well, I'll just say that Witten was the lowest. I had a mid-range, and then I had one that was absolutely outrageous. They were wanting $16,000, and I said, the structure's not worth that. So we passed on that. But anyway, they're going to be out here Monday, January 10th, and they'll start on that. I want to get that done, and then we'll start bidding concrete if somebody will give me a phone number to call. That's right. Or an additional phone number.
I'm gonna text him right now,
Okay.
so pardon me.
Okay.
The amount on, for Witten,
It was 5,500 plus the plywood material and the labor to install the plywood. I think it's gonna come out to be around 6,000.
okay.
That's what I estimate. So, okay, we have, and when I say we, Luke has looked, I've looked, Maria has looked. Luke has been on the top of the fire water tank for the fire protection system, and we cannot find a placard anywhere on that thing. So I looked, and the diesel fire pump and the, what they call the jockey pump, they were installed by a company called Swanson Fire Protection, I think it was. We tried calling them. I won't go into all the details of that. But anyway, Maria finally fired off an email to them, and they were going to check their records. It doesn't mean that they were the ones that installed the tank, but they were going to go look back at their records to see if they could determine who was the contractor. And we determined that was in 2008, or was it 07?
8, 9.
8 and 9, okay. So we're still working on that, and that is to precipitate an inspection, you know, going in and looking at the lining of that tank. In conversation I had with Bender Mullen is another fire protection company. I just called them because we used them on the fire hydrant back there. The guy told me if you don't have a placard, you know, like a certified tank, even though they'll be able to tell it's a certified tank, they won't know the specs, so they said they will really hammer us. Whoever inspects it will go overboard to protect their liability or their professional liability. Yeah, you probably might have some background in this, but, so anyway, we're still trying to figure out if we can find out who the manufacturer is and find out why we didn't get a placard or whatever. Unfortunately, the engineer that was in charge of that project, we litigated with for 10 years, and we're a little uncomfortable calling them. But we might have to reach out to them and just see if they're willing to help us on that.
We don't have as-built.
I looked, found the bid package books, but there's no as-bills.
Is there specifications for the tank in the bid package?
I couldn't even tell you how
Well-
many gallons it is.
Right, it
I
doesn't.
know how many feet it is, but we don't.
So if Swanson doesn't get us information back, which they felt that they could, you know, go back in their history and find the install, then I thought about just calling Clay County
That's what I was
and then
getting
just
ready
get
to
the
say.
permit information from there,
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
so.
They maintain those records forever.
So anyway, we're still working on that. So, Luke has been working on coordinating. We've got in general, fuel farm, and make sure I say this right, fuel farm, fuel truck inspection or audit by Titan, who is our fuel supplier. In addition to that, we want to get the jet tank cleaned and inspected. Is that not correct? So Luke is working on coordinating that and making sure he spent most of the day going over all of the records, documentation, for fuelings, refueling, quality control, all that concerns the inlet and outlet of fuel here at our facility. In addition to that, he came up with an idea which I think is brilliant. and we've discussed it at other meetings here, I think, and that was to go ahead and acquire a new jet fuel pump for that farm, because right now that jet fuel is our bread and butter, or that's our survival. So and I'm gonna let him talk a little bit about that if I can yield to him. But he's already got the pump on order, a rebuild kit for the old pump, and a new motor, and I'll let you have it.
Avacon Fuel Services is the company that does, or the sole provider of the company that does the fuel system maintenance for us regarding tank cleanings, equipment repairs, various projects. So they're the sole provider that does that. I contacted Avacon and they provided me a quote of just over $3,900 to replace the jet fuel pump, also a brand new motor applicable to that pump, and a pump rebuild kit to rebuild the old pump and have it as a backup if ever needed. Their labor charge to travel and come up and do it will be just under $1,200 on top of that. So all combined, they're putting us on the schedule now to, when that pump and motor comes in, to come up here and install it. That way, we don't ever have a failure in the foreseeable future, because right now, one load of fuel delivered to Rockland produces about $3,500 of net profit for us.
That's on our jet fuel.
Off of strictly the jet fuel. So that pump and motor's been in there for quite a while, and the thought was go ahead and replace it so that if something ever happens, we're not stuck causing Rockland to fail their contract and delivering fuel.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then what we want to do is, or I'm going to investigate, is he'll have the new motor put on there with a new pump. He'll have the old pump taken back to their facility. They'll rebuild it there. And then we're going to see if it's worth having which is more economical, to have the old motor rewound, which can be done by Tampa Armature Works or somebody like that, or if it's more economically feasible to get a motor. But with the current supply chain issue problems, just like Maria was talking about today, we've got to make sure we've got the jet fuel filters on order, because we don't order them but once a year. What if it takes 4 months to get them? It could shut us down, but we're okay there. So we'll have the pump and the motor here. The problem won't be getting the technician, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, if we've got a pump or a motor here. But if we don't have the parts, technician won't do us any good. So I thought that was a very good idea on his part. We've never discussed that before, and kudos to Luke for coming up with that.
Yeah.
And finally, the last thing I've got is, so back in, I want to say it was September, maybe October, I sold the old diesel powered, which was having problems, the zero turn Skag for $2,000. Happy to say I sold the old Bush Hog Monday for $1,500. I don't know how old that thing was. It was 8 or 10 years old, but that was really a pretty good price. Guy didn't even question me. And I've got 2 or 3 people that are looking at the blue Ford tractor. So we're going to take that money and we're putting that in a fund, and we may use that to buy some other equipment we'll bring to your attention here in the very near future, I hope. And that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farrar. And I'm in the process of texting to you Tony Jordan's contact
Very
information.
good.
The concrete guy.
Finally.
All right, finally. Sorry about
Shame
that.
him into it.
And thank you, Luke, for all you've done and with that fuel system, and we really appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, we're gonna jump down to Ms. Hitt.
All right, well, we'll mark off, we've already talked about the new funding, federal funding with Bill. Let me go through some real quick ones. Palatka Airport, they are doing their fly-in. Typically it was in January, so this year, if you want to put it in your calendar, it's scheduled for February the 5th. I think they typically do 10 to 4 o'clock, I believe. Vacation time, I will be heading out and out of the office starting tomorrow afternoon, and then I'll be back in the office next Wednesday. I'm going on my first hunt trip, going to Texas. My lovely husband bought me a 1969 Winchester. What?
30.
30:30. Yep. Got it sighted in. Don't even know what I have, but I did it and.
You'll have bruises on your shoulder when you.
Wait, look, was it a 30-30 or what?
It's a 30 all six.
That's a big difference.
Don't worry, I didn't know what it was either. I knew it wasn't a pistol.
30-30 earlier today, so that's why I said,
Yeah. Anyway, so I'll be back in the office and I'll let you know, Mr. Hunter, how I do.
Well, I'm sure you'll be successful.
Yes, yeah. Anyhow.
Just real quick, tell them, how much could the deer end up costing? Did he say 1,800 to 8,000?
Oh, yeah, depending on your points.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm such a cheapskate. I want the deer with 1 point. I think that's called a unicorn. So if I see that.
So are these whitetail or mule deer?
Oh, really, Scott? I don't know. It's west of Austin, whatever.
Whatever's right around.
Here, yeah.
Christmas is over. What would they be, Luke?
Most likely whitetail.
yeah.
I'll come back and I'll have the head in my office, right?
I thought I was serving you up a softball.
Yeah, I missed that one. Yeah, I brought my golf club. I know what I was doing.
Bash the deer over the head.
No, I'll just bore it to death, I'm sure. Oh, so the other piece, just an update too, that the RFQ for general planning or engineering, that went out in the paper on the 16th and the 23rd. And we've received a couple of just inquiries about it. But it's due to the office by 4 o'clock on February the 10th. So at that point, then I'll get it to the review team and then we'll bring our suggestions or our recommendations back to the board at our March meeting. So, let's see, okay. Wait list application vetting. I think that was the best way I wanted to put it because I wanted to, we're streamlining our wait list. We're getting it narrowed down. You know, when it appeared as though right after the election and with COVID and all of that, everybody was moving to the state and our wait list jumped from about 20 people all the way up to over probably 65 people. I think some of that's calmed down a little bit because we're getting feedback from some of the people, just take us off the list. We found a location. So we've got it narrowed down. I think Morgan's had down to around 35 people or so. But one of the situations that we came into was that there was someone who has been on the wait list for quite some time. And I'm hesitant in accepting the application because of past safety issues. And so.
That individual.
Yes, here at this facility. So I'm really searching for some feedback from the board. And of course, if this is something that has to be put in front of Jim Taylor, we can do that. But, I think we can't obviously control what a pilot does once they're up in the air. That's what, that's a FAA issue. But the safety circumstances that we've dealt with this individual in the past makes me very nervous about having that person here again. So I just wanted to we can talk about this, at another meeting, if you want me to bring back more information, if we want to just open it up for discussion and get your opinions about this, but.
Are they on their own, or were they not renewed? By the airport?
No, they were involved with
Another organization.
another organization who is still here, and this individual was removed from that organization, and now is wanting to come back as a independent.
Here's a little background, Mr. Harvin. This individual flew an airplane in here at night and forgot to put the landing gear down and did a prop strike on the runway and somehow was able to power the airplane up and make a return to landing with bent propellers, did not report it, left gouges in the runway. On another
Incident.
Yeah, another incident was we had one of our employees and a flight instructor at the fuel pump, and this individual taxied an airplane up with the spinning end of the airplane, the propeller, coming within feet of these people. And then on numerous occasions, I have seen this individual what we call fast taxiing, going way too fast up and down.
With students.
Now, hearsay is not permitted, but I know somebody that knew this individual and they worked for, how do I put it, an emergency evacuation helicopter company. Would that make sense to you? And this person, I understand, was terminated because of when that individual came in to land on the rooftop of one of the medical facilities in Jacksonville, the emergency crew had to retract or run back towards the elevator to avoid a strike from the tail rotor of the helicopter swinging. This person just doesn't have a propensity to operating aircraft in a safe manner, and then becomes argumentative when you confront them with it, denying it.
How much, if any of that's been documented that took place here?
Our
And I think
incidences
we-
here, we haven't documented.
In fact, I think the employee filed a complaint with the FAA.
So with that being said, if I can just make a recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is that the board just gives consensus for your manager to consult with your attorney and make sure that there's no legal obligations and that you're capable of dismissing an application. And that way you can move forward without having
We're covered. Sure we're-
well, just without having a hearing or airing out in a public meeting.
Right.
I agree with that
I
approach.
agree too.
I agree.
Consensus of the board.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, sounds good. I will
bad
get ahold of Mr.
recommendation.
Taylor this week then.
While you're asking about the Cessna 140 while you're,
Oh,
Since you're on that subject,
yes.
and again, I don't know if this would help you if the board was involved, and maybe you don't agree, but I think you've got two people that had signed up on the list, and when Morgan went to call them, they said, I haven't bought my airplane yet. Do we need to pass something? I don't think we should have anybody allowed to sign up on a list that doesn't own an airplane. Now, maybe y'all think that's wrong, but we're tying it up, and then when you did contact one individual, he says, well, I may not be able to get the airplane till March or April or May. I don't think we should be entertaining. I think you have an airplane and then you get on the list. That's the way some of the airports we contacted.
At the very least, you would say, okay, you can get on the list without an airplane, but when we call you, you better have it by then.
If not, you go.
And then you go to the bottom of the list.
Yep.
I would think so. Let's address that because we do address that in the MOS.
Okay.
We talk about hangar wait list and what that process looks like and what the staff does. So let's remember
I
to
don't
add
think there's
that.
but a couple of them, and it may seem unfair, but I don't even think we should be wasting our time. I think they should have
And
the,
there are some airports, as you know, people have been applying this past year, there's some airports that have that as a, you know, you have to show us your registration, your insurance, all of that before you can even fill out your application. And some airports are even requesting like anywhere from a $200 to $500 deposit that they've got to put down.
I don't have a problem with that either. That's fine, but I was just saying at the very least, you know, you can get on the list, but when we call you, you have to have
better
an
have it.
airplane.
Right,
okay, we can discuss it then.
okay. All right.
Good.
Other than that, I mean, you know, Scott's covered most of the stuff from the airfield side of things. So unless anybody has any questions on anything else, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Head, for all that you do here every day. And Mr. Fryer, thank you again for
Bring us
all
back.
you're doing every day. And you and Mr. Four are doing some incredible things
Tearing
out
up the
here.
airfield and spending money.
And doing a good job at it.
Yep.
All right, Ms. Lynn.
Just a couple of quick things. So we talked about the CPIU and we talked about the water sewer. I did confirm today with Clay County that we will be able to go ahead and move forward with the current contract being maintained with AECom invoicing the airport, and then I'll work with Maria specifically on how the airport will then invoice the city so we can keep those contracts and payables clean with AECom and as we go through this feasibility study. Studies, we have the TPO, the list, the Unified Work Program, Planning Program Unified, and then the list of priority projects is coming up due at the end of this month. December proved to be a very busy month for everybody involved. I did hear from Mr. Clark letters late this afternoon, and so I'll be touching touching base with him tomorrow, and then we'll work on quickly moving forward with some of the things that we have on the list with TPO, and I'll be working with Mr. Cornegay on that as well to submit it to the board in February. I think right now the main project that we have with the TPO is the current airport road, and then the possibility of a study for a secondary entrance off of State Road 21, but there's further conversations that we need to have probably before we push on that this year. With that being said, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Clay Day is coming up.
Yes, Clay Day's coming up. I have reservations, we've made reservations for Mr. Kirkland and Ms. Hitt, and those invoices will be sent from Ms. Gibbs. And then if there's anybody else, however else you want that handled, then just work directly with Ms. Gibbs and we'll get that taken care of.
Okay, perfect.
And the planning committee that's for Clay County, are there some guidelines on what, I know we're going to go in under the city umbrella, obviously.
Yes.
Any indications on what information we need to carry this time? You know, in the past, we've done elaborate booths and all kind of things, and I know we're pared down because of space, so I was curious.
Yes.
With the restrictions now in space, what are we?
So I just received word from Miss Kimberly Morgan from Clay County. She's the one who's handling all the logistics of it. She has us with 6 tables between the airport and the city, so we're going to pare that down just a little bit. I don't know that we could fill that if we tried. However, with that being said, the next meeting is going to be coming up here in mid-January, and we'll be able to finalize all those details. One of the questions that I had earlier was if the airport was interested in bringing a vehicle to park on the property. I don't know if the courtesy car with the logo for attraction or maybe something from the firm or things of that nature, but those are the details that we'll need to know sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good idea.
Not sure that the.
I don't know, the firm wants to drive.
I don't know if the courtesy car will make it all the way to Tallahassee.
And
but-
back.
And back, right. But I can certainly reach out to the firm and
See if there's something that they want to put on there,
Yeah,
just
If
for
they want to take
attraction.
that Lamborghini, I'm retired.
So you more than willing.
I don't mind.
couple days
It'll put me out a little bit, but
But with that being said, just something visual to bring out. We are the only airport, and we can end up with the coolest booth, be the cool kids in town.
Okay.
okay, yeah, that
good.
sounds good.
And if any of the board members have ideas that you'd like to suggest for that event, we appreciate that. And you're welcome to attend as well. I know Mr. Shar and Mr. Nichols at the time, they flew up. Mr. Nichols flew up his airplane and, was there for that. So, all right.
I forgot one thing under my, I had so much written here. I just want to let y'all know. Keystone Plumbing is going to be running the camera bore scope or whatever you want to call it. There's a septic tank, and this I should have brought up while Mr. Prang was here. But behind that corporate hangar, it looks like they put toilet flanges in each building, kind of like we did over here, but they never hooked up. But there is a completely viable septic tank back there. So I've got Sam coming from Keystone Plumbing in the morning. He's going to be running that camera, and he's going to investigate what's there, what it will take us, and we'll get an estimate what it'll take us to activate that, which should be minimal, and possibly tie those in. And now would be a good time if we're going to do those floors. We can get a hard plump right in. So just forgot about that. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's money well spent because.
Can we charge more?
We can put one of those coin changers on the toilet door.
All right, anything else? I do want to let the record show that we're glad to have guests with us tonight. Mr. Frank Host, he served as a board member on the Sportsman's Club for years. I think he's still active with the club. And also Mr. Luke Ford, our airfield manager. So thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. It is 7:36. We will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you very much.